The sun bled across the horizon, painting the scrubland in hues of bruised purple and angry orange. Each footfall was a prayer, a silent plea whispered to the unforgiving earth. The air hung thick and heavy, pregnant with the scent of dust and the metallic tang of fear. Before me, the minefield stretched, an invisible labyrinth of death camouflaged beneath the deceptive beauty of the dawn. Every shadow seemed to writhe, every rustle of wind carried the potential of oblivion. I could taste the grit on my tongue, the dryness a stark reminder of the parched landscape mirroring the barrenness in my soul. This was it. Each step could be the last. My boots were heavy, weighted not just by the thick soles, but by the burden of what lay behind, and the terrifying uncertainty of what lay ahead. A lone hawk circled overhead, a silent sentinel observing my descent into this silent war. Its cry echoed in the vast emptiness, a mournful sound that resonated deep within my chest. I closed my eyes for a moment, seeking a flicker of hope in the darkness, a reason to believe that I could navigate this deadly dance and emerge on the other side. But the darkness offered only the chilling echo of my own fear. The world narrowed to the small patch of ground directly in front of me. The wind whispered secrets I couldn't decipher, and the rising sun cast long, distorted shadows that played tricks on my eyes. This wasn't just a physical minefield, it was a landscape of the soul, a reflection of the buried traumas and unspoken anxieties that had led me to this precipice. I took a breath, the air thin and sharp in my lungs, and began to move. Her laughter was the sound of wind chimes in a summer breeze, a melody that could chase away the darkest clouds. I remember sitting on the porch swing, the worn wood creaking beneath us, as she told me stories of her childhood, tales filled with fireflies and whispering cornfields. Her eyes, the color of warm honey, would sparkle with mischief, and I would get lost in their depths, forgetting the world outside our little haven. She was sunshine and stardust, the anchor that kept me grounded when the storms raged. We met in the most ordinary of circumstances, a spilled coffee, a shared umbrella on a rainy day. But from that moment, our lives became intertwined, two separate threads weaving together to create a tapestry of shared dreams and quiet moments. We built a world within a world, a sanctuary where we could be vulnerable and honest, where our flaws were not weaknesses but endearing quirks. I remember the way she would hum off-key while she cooked, the comforting aroma of cinnamon filling the air, and the way she would always find a way to make me laugh, even when I felt like the weight of the world was crushing me. She taught me how to see the beauty in the mundane, to appreciate the small miracles that often go unnoticed. We would spend hours walking in the woods, her hand nestled in mine, listening to the rustling leaves and the songs of the birds. She would point out the intricate patterns on a butterfly's wing, the delicate petals of a wildflower, the way the sunlight filtered through the trees, painting the forest floor in dappled light. She saw the world with a sense of wonder, and she shared that wonder with me. But our sanctuary wasn't immune to the outside world. Shadows crept in, whispering doubts and insecurities, testing the strength of our bond. We faced challenges, heartaches, and moments of profound sadness. Yet, through it all, we held on to each other, our love a beacon in the darkness. We weathered the storms together, emerging stronger and more resilient each time. Or so I thought. Now, standing here on the edge of this minefield, I realize that the most dangerous terrain isn't always the physical one. Sometimes, the most treacherous landscapes lie within the heart, hidden beneath layers of unspoken words and unresolved conflicts. The silence between us had grown into a chasm, a void that threatened to swallow us whole. And I knew, with a chilling certainty, that crossing this minefield was not just about surviving the physical danger, but about confronting the emotional landmines that had been planted between us, silently, over time. The sun beat down, a relentless hammer on the back of my neck. Each bead of sweat felt like a tiny betrayal, a glistening flag waving my presence to unseen eyes. Ahead, Liam froze, his hand raised, palm out. The universal signal for stop. I mirrored him, my breath catching in my throat. He hadn't found anything. Not yet. But the air had changed, grown thick with a tension that vibrated in my teeth. It was the kind of silence that screamed. He pointed, a slow, deliberate movement, to a patch of ground barely 3 feet to my left. The earth there was subtly different, a shade darker, the vegetation stunted and sparse. A tell. A whisper of danger in a landscape of death. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drummer in a silent parade. Liam's eyes met mine, a question etched deep within their depths. He was asking me if I saw it. If I understood. I nodded, a minuscule movement, and swallowed hard. He began to inch forward, a painstaking process of placing each foot with surgical precision. He was going to try and skirt around it, create a safe path for me. It was insane. The odds of him making it were slim, and even if he did, there was no guarantee the path behind him would remain clear. But that was Liam. Always the protector, always willing to shoulder the burden. And that's when it happened. Block 3, climax and consequences. A twig snapped. A sound so insignificant, so utterly commonplace, yet in that suffocating silence, it resonated like a gunshot. Not from Liam. From behind me. I whipped around, my hand instinctively reaching for the useless pistol strapped to my thigh. Too late. A figure emerged from the tree line, a soldier, young, face streaked with dirt and fear. He hadn't seen the minefield. He was just lost, desperate. He stumbled, his foot landing squarely on the pressure plate. The world exploded. Not in a fiery, Hollywood spectacle, but with a deafening crack, a plume of dirt and smoke, and a concussive force that slammed into me, throwing me to the ground. The ringing in my ears was immediate, a high-pitched whine that drowned out all other sound. Disoriented, I scrambled to my feet, coughing, my eyes stinging from the dust. Liam. Where was Liam? I saw him then, lying still, a few feet away. The blast had thrown him clear of the immediate impact zone, but the shockwave. I crawled to him, my hands shaking, my throat raw with unshed tears. He was unconscious, his face pale, a thin trickle of blood running from his ear. The soldier, he was gone. Erased. The mine had done its job with brutal efficiency. I cradled Liam's head in my lap, my fingers trembling as I checked for a pulse. Faint. Too faint. He was alive, but barely. And I knew, with a sickening certainty, that we were trapped. The blast had undoubtedly alerted the enemy. They would be coming. And I was alone, injured, and completely outmatched. I screamed. A primal, desperate scream that tore through the silence, a futile cry for help in a landscape of death. And then I began to dig. Frantically, desperately, I clawed at the earth, trying to create a shallow trench, a meager shield against the inevitable onslaught. I had to protect Liam. I had to buy him time. Even if it meant sacrificing myself. The first shots rang out, snapping past me like angry wasps. I pressed myself against the ground, shielding Liam's body with my own. The attack was relentless, a hail of bullets tearing through the trees, ripping up the earth around us. I knew it was only a matter of time. And then silence. Again. But this time, it was different. This time, it was the silence of the grave. I waited, every muscle tense, every nerve screaming. And then I heard the voices. Close. Too close. They were coming. Block 4, emotional scars in the present. The hum of the refrigerator is too loud tonight. It grates on my nerves, a constant, irritating drone that mirrors the persistent ringing in my ears. A phantom echo of the explosion. I pour another glass of wine, the ruby liquid swirling in the glass, a distorted reflection of my own haunted face. 10 years. It's been 10 years since that day. 10 years since I left a piece of myself buried in that minefield. 10 years of trying to outrun the ghosts that chase me in my dreams. Liam survived. Miraculously, improbably, he survived. But he wasn't the same. The blast had left him with permanent hearing loss, a constant, debilitating tinnitus that drove him to the edge of madness. He tried to pick up the pieces, to rebuild his life, but the war had broken him in ways that could never be truly repaired. We tried. We tried to recapture the love we had shared, the easy camaraderie, the unwavering trust. But the silence between us was too profound, too heavy. It was filled with unspoken words, with the weight of shared trauma, with the knowledge of what we had lost. He left 2 years later. Vanished without a trace. No note, no explanation. Just an empty apartment, and a gaping hole in my heart. I searched for him, hired detectives, plastered his picture on every missing person website I could find. But he was gone. Lost to the shadows, consumed by the darkness that had taken root within him. Sometimes, late at night, when the silence is deafening, I imagine him standing on the edge of that minefield again, his hand raised, palm out. Warning me. Protecting me. And I wonder if he ever thinks of me. If he ever regrets leaving. If he ever remembers the woman I used to be, before the war stole her away. The therapist says I need to forgive myself. That I can't continue to carry the weight of the past on my shoulders. But how do you forgive yourself for surviving when others didn't? How do you forgive yourself for the choices you made, the sacrifices you endured, the scars you bear? I look at my hands, the same hands that clawed at the earth, that cradled Liam's head, that fired a weapon in desperation. They are marked with the map of my trauma, etched with the lines of regret. And I know that the minefield is not just a place. It's a state of mind. A constant awareness of the danger that lurks beneath the surface, the potential for sudden, devastating loss. The wine is gone. The refrigerator still hums. And the silence screams. I close my eyes, and I am back there again, on my knees in the dirt, the taste of smoke and fear on my tongue. Every step could be the last. And I am still walking. Still trying to find my way out. Still searching for a way to silence the ghosts. The last section of the minefield stretched before them, an expanse of deceptively calm earth under the unforgiving sun. Elias, his face etched with a fatigue that went beyond the physical, moved with a renewed, almost desperate focus. Each footfall was a prayer, each breath a gamble. He could feel Lena's unwavering gaze on his back, a source of both comfort and unbearable pressure. He knew she was mentally tracing his steps, mirroring his movements, her life hanging in the balance of his precision. Then it happened. A click, so faint it was almost imperceptible, resonated beneath Elias's boot. Time seemed to warp and stretch. He froze, every muscle screaming in protest, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs. The air crackled with a silent, suffocating tension. He dared not breathe, dared not move. Lena gasped softly behind him, a sound that echoed like thunder in the stillness. He closed his eyes, a single tear tracing a path through the grime on his cheek. This was it. But the explosion never came. Slowly, agonizingly, Elias opened his eyes. He saw the ground beneath his boot, the dry, cracked earth, the insidious hint of green that betrayed the pressure plate. He understood. This wasn't a mine. It was a decoy, a phantom threat designed to break the spirit, to shatter the resolve. A cruel joke played by unseen hands. He let out a shaky breath, a sound that was half sob, half laugh. He turned slowly to Lena, his eyes searching hers. He saw the reflection of his own terror mirrored there, but beneath it, a flicker of something else, unwavering trust. He offered her a small, weary smile. "It's okay," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "It's just a trick." He took another step, and then another. The ground remained silent. He moved with a newfound determination, the fear still present, but now tempered with a burning anger. He wouldn't let this field claim them. He wouldn't let the ghosts of the past win. He reached the edge, the blessed boundary between the minefield and the relative safety beyond. He turned and held out his hand to Lena. She looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and disbelief. Then, with a small, determined nod, she began to retrace his steps. Every movement was precise, every breath controlled. Elias watched her, his heart pounding in his chest. He saw her navigate the treacherous path, her face a mask of concentration. Finally, she reached him. She took his hand, her fingers cold and trembling. They stood there for a moment, their hands clasped tightly, the silence broken only by their ragged breaths. Then, without a word, they walked away from the minefield, leaving the ghosts of the past behind them. They walked for hours, until they reached a small, abandoned village nestled in the foothills of the mountains. They found shelter in a crumbling church, its stained glass windows shattered, its altar covered in dust. But within those broken walls, they found a strange kind of peace. That night, as they sat huddled together, sharing the last of their water, Lena spoke for the first time since they entered the minefield. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why did you come back for me?" Elias looked at her, his eyes filled with a deep sadness. "Because," he said, "I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. Because you reminded me of what I had lost." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "You reminded me of hope." He reached out and gently brushed a stray strand of hair from her face. "I failed to save them, Lena. I couldn't fail you too." Lena leaned her head against his shoulder, and they sat in silence, the only sound the crackling of the small fire they had built. The weight of their shared trauma hung heavy in the air, but beneath it, a fragile seed of hope began to sprout. The minefield had tested them, broken them, but it had also forged a bond between them, a connection that transcended words. They had faced death together, and in doing so, they had found a reason to live. The scars would remain, a constant reminder of the horrors they had witnessed, but they would also serve as a testament to their resilience, their courage, their unwavering will to survive. As the first rays of dawn filtered through the broken windows of the church, Elias knew that their journey was far from over. The world outside was still a dangerous place, filled with uncertainty and pain. But they would face it together, hand in hand, their steps guided by the memory of the minefield, and the knowledge that even in the darkest of times, hope can still be found. They would carry the silence of the field within them, a constant reminder of the fragility of life, and the enduring power of the human spirit. They had crossed the minefield, and in doing so, they had found their way back to each other, and to themselves. The end, perhaps, was just a new beginning.